All right. Hello, my friend. Welcome to the next episode in the Red Delta Project podcast, where we take a fundamental approach to diet and exercise to give you more power, control, and freedom over your healthy lifestyle. I am Matt Schifferly, and this week you'll have to excuse me. I'm just recovering from a really nasty cough and a cold. I got my tea right here to soothe my throat and stuff. So if my voice sounds a little bit achy and stuff, and I'll promise to mute whenever I'm about to feel a coughing fit come on, then please excuse. But I wanted to really get to this week's episode because it is kind of a then versus now episode. I get a lot of requests for this sort of topic where people are like, well, what was your diet like back in the day from now? And how have you changed things in your workout programs over the years? So that's what I wanted to address for today. And so let's start to explore that. And this is kind of a bit of a situation that would be a good example of what's different between then versus now. See, back in the day, I was all about the struggle, the grind, the no pain, no gain sort of thing. So if I was feeling under the weather, like I have been for the past week, I took that as kind of an opportunity of full steam ahead, force yourself to do it. Keep going, don't change, stay on target at all times, no matter the cost kind of guy. And of course, that's not the smartest way to go about things. In fact, it's quite stupid. But at the time, I thought it made me tough. I thought it made me macho. If I felt like I was doing an exercise and I was going to go and be sick, or I had a running fever or something, that just was going to make me tougher because it was harder. And that was probably the basic approach that I used to have with exercise. Was I didn't try to do anything well. I didn't try to train smart or productive. My compass that I was following the whole time was basically, well, if it's hard, then it's gotta be effective. Or if it requires a lot of effort, then it's gotta be making you tougher and stronger and more resilient and all these other sorts of things. So basically based a lot of my workout decisions off of, I don't know, just what sucks. What makes it feel harder? What makes you suffer more? I didn't actually have an intelligent approach where I was asking, yeah, but is that really what you should be doing for your goals? Is that productive use of your time? And in many ways, this was extremely detrimental to me because I literally would do stuff purely for the sake that it would hurt me. It would damage me. I would go out and go for bike rides during purposely the hottest point of the day, without water, without proper clothing, basically I would ride my bicycle barefoot because the pedals would chew up the bottoms of my feet kind of thing. Maybe a bit extreme and stuff, but that was the whole thing. It was like, well, it's going to make it harder. It's going to make it more difficult and make me suffer more. Therefore, it's probably something I should do. So it was a long time coming, but now, of course, I come to the point of like, it's not about effort. Workout isn't going to be more effective just because something is harder. In fact, I've gotten even more to the point where I look at exercises or methods of approach and I'm like, yeah, it's hard, but does that have anything to do with what do I want to accomplish? Probably one of the most prominent examples of this was when I made a video years ago questioning the productivity and effectiveness of burpees. Where I was like, what are they really good for? Like if you came to me and saying, I want to build muscle or explosive power or endurance and stamina and 100 other things, I can't really think of any one particular situation where I would find the burpee to be a very valuable thing. Or usually I would find many other exercises that would probably be more effective than the burpee, kind of like a Swiss Army knife exercise that I always alluded it to. It's like it does a lot of things, but it doesn't do anything particularly well. And a lot of the criticism that I got on that, and I wasn't decrying the burpee. I wasn't saying it was a bad exercise. I was literally just saying, what is this thing good for? Like, what does it do really well? And some of the negative comments were basically based on the idea of you're a wimp, you don't want to take it hard, like you're just trying to find the easy way out. Basically, a lot of the criticism I was getting was from people who were using the burpee purely because it was a very hard exercise, because it required a lot of effort to do. And there was a time when I would have agreed with that, but now I look at it, I'm like, so what if it requires a lot of effort? Juggling flaming kettlebells requires a lot of effort. Doesn't mean it's going to be good at making you good at pull-ups, right? Instead, now what I do is I look at the physiological qualities that I want, particularly the fundamental functional qualities. Do I want to be explosive? Do I want to be strong? Do I want to have good stability in my hips? All these things. And then addressing what are the training methods that are going to challenge yet allow me to develop those qualities as effectively as possible. And believe it or not, with as little effort as necessary. Not because I want to avoid effort, not because I want to avoid hard work. I love hard work. It's killing me for the past week that I've been able to barely do any sort of physical activity. It's because you can't scale hard work. Hard work is not an asset, my friends. It is a liability. Every second of time, every ounce of effort you put into your training is a cost. It is a cost to your mind, body, and lifestyle. And like any cost, you want a return on that investment. But like any investment, there's no guarantee it's going to produce a return. So we always want to be critically thinking about, yes, it's producing effort, it requires effort, but what am I getting out of it? Am I getting as much as I can out of it? Because no, you're not guaranteed to get a lot out of it just because you're putting a lot into it. There's that idea of you get out what you put in. Not at all. It is most certainly possible to put a lot in and get very little out, to have very little worth it. And looking back on the history of my training and my workouts and stuff, I regret a lot of the workout methods that I used to do. I regret a lot of the workouts. I regret a lot of those things that I did that required a lot of effort because honestly, they weren't worth it. They didn't do me very much good. They didn't make me stronger. They didn't make me more explosive. They didn't build muscle and speed and power and stamina nearly. And even if they did, not nearly to the degree that the cost warranted. So I ended up paying a lot, but not getting a lot much back in return. So now what I do is I flip it. It's like, okay, I'm not afraid to invest time and money and energy and all that sort of thing, but I'd better be getting a return on it. I'd better be getting something back for it. And ideally, I want to get more back and invest less. That's why I got my equipment back there. Why I love isometrics, suspension training, all micro workouts, all the methods I mentioned in my book down below, right? Because it's less cost upfront, but bigger return. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you don't get results because you work your ass off. You get results because you're productive and you're good at working your ass off. That's what's different now. Excuse me while I drink some tea here. Pardon me. Boy, that really took more out of my throat than I thought. Excuse me. Let's actually get to a question real quick. Dave, right on the gate, on the shoulder of that, asking about burpees. On burpees, do you think there are better exercise drills for level changes like for MMA and grappling? Oh, that's a really good one. So this is one of the points, because a lot of people in that video wrote back and they're like, I get what you're saying, but I think the burpee's good for this and good for that and sort of thing. And that's one of the cases where they were like, what about like level changes where you're getting down on the ground and standing back up, down on the ground, standing back up? I fully agree. If you came to me and you're like, dude, I'm in MMA, I need to be able to get proficiently good at exploding off the ground and then getting back down real fast and up, burpees are awesome for that. So if we needed to develop that quality, burpees all the way, baby. Burpees all the way. In fact, at the gym I work at, we call them up downs, where it's basically a burpee without the push up, right? So, and sometimes you can even enhance it more for if you were an MMA guy, BJJ, I'd say, okay, so let's make it even more productive. Get down on the ground and then do a couple of other exercises and drills where you're changing position on the ground back and forth, you know, in various like BJJ positions, or you're jumping side to side a little bit. Like, what would you need to do on the ground and then get back up so we could tweak it a little bit to be even more productive? And that's what we want to have in our mindset of, if we're going to do the work, let's make the work as effective as possible, not just assuming it's effective because we're putting in a lot of effort. So that's the tweak on working out. It's not so much how hard can you, because everybody works hard. The hardest working person is the laziest person. The people we always are like, people are lazy. The lazier you are, the harder you're going to have to work in life. Why? Because everything you do is going to take exponentially more effort, right? The harder you work proactively to become better at doing things, the less work you need to put in to have productivity. That's what my book Micro Workouts is about. It's not about working hard. It's about being very good at working out, being good at working out programming. So you can be more productive in 10 minutes than other people are in half an hour or even an hour, because it's not the effort, it's the productivity. KG asking here, so on the topic of investment versus return, would you still recommend something like convict conditioning? Absolutely, 100%. So the best bang for the buck workout methods are the ones that take the least amount of preparatory work, preparation, okay? So you could just go. You don't need to set up a lot of plates. You don't need to do a lot of things. You don't need to go to a gym. You don't need a long, lengthy warm up. You don't need to get in special equipment and clothing and stuff like that. And progressive calisthenics, which is what convict conditioning is very much in line with that. I remember the first convict conditioning workout I ever did. I was doing the challenge where I did it for a month, no weights or anything. And I was like, I don't know about this. And I did the workout and I gave myself a full body workout. And I remember getting up afterwards going like, is that it? Like, I guess I'm done. And I looked at my log. I'm like, yeah, technically I put in a lot of work, a lot of sets, a lot of reps, a lot of exercises, but I was done in like a third of the time it would usually take me to go through a normal weighted workout. And that's exactly it. Like the work that we often put into our training, a lot of it has no bearing whatsoever on your results. Driving to the gym, setting up equipment, warming up, all these sorts of things, warming up to some degree, but you get what I'm saying? Like, it's not the stuff that's actually telling your body to get stronger versus I got a pull-up bar back there, boiling some water, making some dinner. I'm gonna go do some leg raises. Walk over there, grab a hold, maybe shift around a little bit, loosen up the shoulders, get some leg raises, drop down. Okay, let's check out that water again. I just accomplished more in just that than a lot of people do in their ab workouts because I know how to engage my abs well. I'm tilting the pelvis. I've got good scapular control. I've got a lot of things going on there that makes it more effective in just that one set than what I used to do an entire ab workout, because I used to have these long, arduous ab workouts. Michael Stokes, good point here, is the trouble is people equate time to productivity. They assume because something takes longer, it must be better. Excuse me. And you're absolutely right, because one of the things I also used to do in my workouts was, for some reason, I used to have this quantifiable metric in my workouts where a workout had to take an hour for it to be effective. Like if it was 55 minutes, it was a complete waste of time, right? And anything above an hour was bonus. So if I went for a bike ride and it took an hour, 10 minutes, then that 10 minutes was bonus. And in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, such an epic bike ride, right? I can have a whole pizza tonight for dinner or something just because of that extra 10 minutes, right? But if it was 45 minutes, I'd be like, that was a complete waste of time. This was not worth doing. I shouldn't have even worked out at all. So that's another thing that I got rid of, were these quantifiable metrics. Like your workout counts if you have X, right? You work out for an hour. You use this piece of equipment. You do this many sets or this many reps or something, but only then does it count. But now my approach is everything counts. Everything's effective. There's no such thing as an ineffective set, rep, or exercise. It doesn't count because you check one little box off on your to-do list or your sheet of things that makes it effective. And we want to get away from that attitude, because when we check that box off, we think that because we worked out for an hour or we did 100 repetitions or whatever that metric is, that suddenly it's effective. Not because you did anything better, not because you improved anything, not because of all the things that are truly responsible for how effective the workout is, like proficiency and stuff, but because you did that one thing, you delude yourself into thinking it was effective when in reality it wasn't, or it's up to chance. So it's We're fooling ourselves, in other words. Now, I know it's like, oh, great. I got better pull-ups today. I did stronger pull-ups today. That was great. Who cares if it takes only 5 minutes? It's still effective because it was better pull-ups than before. Greg, on to another. It's good to see you again, Greg. Thank you. The other thing that I used to worry about, I think there are reasons why folks are so concerned they have, quote, good programming. So this was another thing I used to pull my hair out about, figuratively speaking, of course, was this idea of I've got to have the perfect program. I got to have the perfect sets, perfect reps. I got to have the perfect piece of equipment. Curls with a straight bar? No, you can't build biceps with the curls on a straight bar. You've got to have the special fancy curl bar. And the angle of the curl bar has to be just right, just perfect, right? In order for it to be effective and stuff. And you do things by the book every single time, no deviation whatsoever. So nowadays, I have much more of a flexible approach. As I like to say, it's about drive according to your circumstances. In other words, do what you can with what you have. If you've got 10 minutes, use 10 minutes. If you have nothing but a pull-up bar and a set of bands, use the pull-up bar and a set of bands, right? Your workout isn't going to be effective because you've got the perfect program. Excuse me. Trying to get everything perfect and situated just so is another delusion that we fool ourselves into thinking if I could get it perfect, then it'll be effective. And if it's not perfect, it's not going to be effective. Black and white thinking, all or nothing approach. This is not how fitness really works, folks. You're leaving a lot of goods on the table because when we look at what we have and like, all right, how can I use that pull-up bar behind me better? Okay, I'm outside. Oh yeah, we've got these this hill we can sprint up again. Is the hill long enough? Is it going to be conducive to sprint? It's a hill. Go up it. Is it at the right angle? Who cares? Go up it. Run up it as hard as you possibly can, right? Perfection is the enemy of progress because if you're not perfect, you don't even try. And once you reach that state of perfection of whatever it is, and working out for an hour or the right exercise or whatever, you stop trying to be better because you've reached that perfection. So perfection screws you over whether you can hit it or whether you can hit it regularly. Instead, what I do now is, this is how I'm doing things. Now, how do I do it just a tiny bit better? You always keep an eye out for how do I do it better? Because better is what gets you results, not doing it right or perfect all the time. Let's see. Excuse me, folks. Do you take creatine? Never heard you talk about it. No, I don't actually, just because it doesn't do anything for me as far as I know. Again, a buddy of mine used to work in the supplement industry years ago. And he let me know, he's like, yeah, roughly about a third of people, creatine does nothing for them. What's it? Just non-responders to it. And he's like, it's just because you synthesize creatine at a good rate. Remember, taking creatine doesn't give you anything you don't already synthesize automatically in your body. It's just replenishing your stores at a little bit of a faster rate of speed. That's all it is. That's why it's technically a supplement, not a drug, because you have creatine in your system. You're already replenishing it automatically. You don't need a supplement to do that. But some people, they replenish it, or they use so much creatine in their system and they needed to replenish back a little bit faster. And the supplementation can help with that. If it can help, great, wonderful, try it out. Creatine is very safe, it's very cheap, it's very easy. I always encourage people to give it a try. But it doesn't, like all supplements, it doesn't do anything special. It doesn't do anything that your body doesn't already do or you don't already get from food. It's just doing it a little bit faster. And if you're already replenishing your creatine system fast enough, then taking in more isn't really going to do anything for you. Oh, Matt C here. Do you like 45-degree back extensions? So here's another case, right? Back in the day, it wasn't 45 degrees. It was one of the GHDs where you're out in an angle. I got on one of those and I started going back and I was like, yeah, lower back machine, kind of. And I was like, I don't feel this at all in my lower back. It's all in my glutes and hamstrings. What am I doing wrong, right? And stupid me, one of the most idiotic things I ever did was I said, okay, don't use your glutes and hamstrings, use your lower back. Dumb, stupid thing on my part, because it's supposed to work your glutes and hamstrings. Of course, the 45 degree is a great place to start. You can add weight to it if you want more resistance. It's usually a little bit easier for people to manage the tension in the backside on a 45 degree. I typically prefer 45 degrees over the flat out GHD style machines. It's just an easier machine to work with in most cases, so I really like them. But now looking back, I was like, you idiot, of course it's supposed to be glutes and hamstrings, because the lower back, as I've come to understand it now, is more like a joint. You don't really have much for muscle in your lower back. You really don't. It's that you've got your quadratus lumborum in there, and of course your iliocostalis, but that's also very much a spinal erector. So when we have stress in our lower back and we're like, oh, my lower back's really working, that's usually a sign of a chronically anterior tilted pelvis, right? And what that means is that your glutes and hamstrings aren't doing enough of the job to bring you more in a neutral tilting pelvis. So a lot of that work in the lower back is a warning sign that something's wrong. Ideally, when using those 45 degree angles and stuff, we should feel it as much in the glutes and the hamstrings and along your spinal erectors, and not so much in your lower back. Pardon me, drink a little more tea here. Emma coming on with a really good one, talking about productive workouts here. When and how do you consider your workouts to have been productive? How do you measure results? So I'm a big fan of having an awareness of lots of variables. So back in the day, I used to measure the workout's effectiveness. Like if I added reps, if I added weight, it didn't matter if my form sucked, right? I fully admit I was a half repper on the bar, and I'd be like, more weight on the bar, even though I was barely moving the bar, right? It was tiny little rep. I'm sure I was an embarrassment to all gym bros out there. It's like, oh my God, seriously. But I'd stand up and be like, yeah, new PR kind of thing. So when it comes to progression and it comes to proficiency and doing things better, there's both objective and subjective variables. Yes, the objective stuff, how many reps, how much weight is very important. Great. But also consider the subjective variables, of which there are probably many more. And you're probably going to make most of your progress, especially as you get more advanced, through advancing the subjective variables: tension control, speed, range of motion, mobility, stability. Basically, how good are you at doing the exercise, right? I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. I've advanced my ability to do my techniques since I was the age of 10. Not once was I ever using an objective variable in Taekwondo to gauge my progress. It was always, how good is the side kick? And instructors would look at me, or even I'd be able to feel like, oh, that side kick felt great. What was different? Oh, you turned your hip over, Matt. Oh, really? Is that what I did? Okay, I gotta get my hip over. Right? So progression, I've always said, like, results and progression should be very self-evident. How do I know if I'm making progress? Well, if you're asking, probably not, kind of thing. But boy, when I would hit that side kick and bang, and it would snap out, I was like, whoa, holy smokes. Okay, that was a good side kick. I don't have clipboards and spreadsheets and, oh yes, very good, according to the data and the numbers and stuff. It's like, that was a freaking awesome side kick. Same thing with dips, same thing with push-ups, same thing with pull-ups, right? I've been getting much better at keeping my right shoulder packed during dips. How do I know? Because my alignment's better, because my arm's not rubbing against the straps, because when I push up into the dip, my right chest is working just as much as my left chest now. I don't feel like I'm walking around. It's a curious thing. When we go and we just try to do the exercise better, we find ways to do it better, and it becomes very self-evident and important. So, and I give this challenge to people all the time. I want you to change no objective variables in your workout. No more reps, no more weight, everything exactly the same. I call it a freeze workout. You can only change the subjective variables. And it won't be hard. It won't be hard. I know a lot of people are like, it's not possible to tell. Trust me, try it for a couple of weeks. You will know. You will know. And your workouts will feel amazing. It will feel so good. Oh, good one here. So I used to have, back in the day, a very, very bad temper. I still do to a large degree, but GTRE is asking, how do you control anger? So a lot of it just boils down to being aware of still having options. Okay, so for me right now, like the biggest thing that gets under my skin, ironically enough, being a YouTuber and I've got all this equipment around me. I know you can't see it here because I got it out of view, but technology drives me absolutely nuts. You can cut me off in traffic all day long. I'll be, no problem at all. Like so many things, I don't care at all what's going on in politics. I don't give a damn what people say on social. Like there's so many things that should piss me off that don't. But boy, you give me one error message on my smartphone or my computer, and I want to like just blow up the United States. I want to go absolutely crazy and throw everything against the wall and smash everything to 100 pieces kind of thing, because that's what gets my goat, right? So what I've been able to do is just over time is when you recognize these triggers of like, okay, when this happens, I get really angry. That's the first step. X happens, I get really angry, because then you can feel it coming. Then you can be aware of it. We want to be more intellectually in control of what is going on. One of the tricks to dealing with emotion is vocalizing what's making you pissed off. Because when we're 100% in our emotional state, we shut down our head, and that's how we just react, because we're not thinking, right? So if I can, look at that and just, I vocalize sometimes, it's like, I don't understand why Final Cut just does the stupid pinwheel thing, kind of thing. And then like, okay, well, put that into Google. Why does Final Cut do this? And just by repetition of that, recognizing that, okay, I get super frustrated with technology, or when this happens, and I've been able to cope with it over time. So now I get pissed and I'm like, I've done this before. Here's how I cope with it. Now I can do it. Because a lot of times we get angry and frustrated because we hit a roadblock and we feel like there's nothing we can possibly do, right? But as soon as we start opening that door and recognizing there's something we can do, we can still move forward somehow, then we're like, all right, and we can put that energy into being productive versus getting that emotional gridlock. At least that's what I've been able to do to some degree. Do new canal? Very good question here. Weighted pull-ups better than doing bodyweight pull-ups as fast as possible in order to gain explosive power for exercises like the muscle up. By the way, YouTube channel is great. Thank you very much. So both are good. I mean, muscle up is one of those things. You need a lot of different qualities. You can't just be explosive and expect to get a muscle up, because if you could be explosive as hell, but if you still are relatively weak and you can't generate a lot of that power, then you're still not getting over the bar or over the rings or whatever. Remember, explosiveness is the amount of strength expressed over a given amount of time, short period of time. So if you don't have a lot of strength, but you can express it over a short period of time, you're still not going to get very far. But if you've got a lot of strength, but you can't express it over a short period of time, being explosive, still not going there. So you want both. Excuse me. You want both. You want to be strong as an ox, so progressive pull-ups, weighted pull-ups, however you want to address it, and explosive and powerful at the same time. And you can do that very much through practice the explosive stuff first, and then do the weighted stuff or the harder stuff second in your workouts. Dave coming on with some martial arts questions. Do I have a favorite kick or kata or form? You talk about sidekick a lot. I like sidekick, but I'll tell you, my favorite all-time kick is just the simple front kick. I call it my sniper kick. Why? Because it's really fast. It's very efficient as far as energy goes. Like in the martial arts, a lot of kicks, a lot of body movement, a lot of up and around and stuff. But if you ever like watch Jet Li movies, he was really good at that. He'd just be standing and he'd just be like, pow, and his leg would just shoot out and his whole body would barely move at all. And it's very straight. It's very linear. It doesn't have a huge path that kind of telegraphs and stuff like that. And you can pick, people usually have a lot of vertical adjustment with it. Like even someone with hamstrings as tight as me, it's not that hard for me to kick someone at, face height with that. For me to kick side kick face height, really hard. Front kick, not a problem at all, right? So front kick is my favorite kick for sure. I like kata. I practice them every single day. But I would say it's probably just whatever ones I'm practicing for the day are my favorite, just because they make me feel really good. Sure, yeah. Trying to be able to do a chin-up, starting chest level, bodyweight rows in August. Can do 3 sets of 20. Very good. If I keep my workout consistent, when do you think I'll be able to do my first chin-up? I don't know. Give it a try tonight. Try it out, my friend. Because remember, when we do a new technique or a more advanced technique, it's going to be crap. It's not going to be pretty. I always like the analogy, being a writer, of the first time we do something, it's like writing a rough draft, on something where it's going to be kind of messy. It's going to be sloppy. It's not going to be something to write home about, right? But it gets it down on paper. And then what do? You take that rough draft, and you tweak, and you edit, 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 and you edit. And it's through the editing process that your writing actually becomes good. Excuse me. Same exact thing with your calisthenics training. That first pull-up, I don't care if it's that big, just a few inches, right? I don't care if you're wibbling and wobbling around and you're reaching your chin and your body position's not perfect. Just get what you can, my friend. Get what you can. Do them 1 at a time, 2 at a time, keep the reps low. And then over time, say, okay, just trying to edit that technique. Do it a little bit better, a little more range. Keep your feet locked so they're not kicking around all over the place. What about your twisting, your body position? Quiet that down a little bit. Just do a little bit better. Don't even try to do more reps. Keep the same number of reps for the rest of the year. Keep it to where you can manage it, and then you can work on your technique, because as your technique and your proficiency gets better, the reps will naturally come. Excuse me here, the voice is going here. Greg Furman coming on. Look at that beautiful haircut. Same here. Hey, Matt, it's like there's a huge need to focus on how the training feels to observe proficiency gains. Absolutely. So back in the day, again, going with the theme of what I used to do versus now, is I was always one of those people who was like, it doesn't matter how it feels, mind muscle connections, bunch of bull, too much on the objective side. And now it's, training is a sensory thing. It's something that we engage our senses with, of how it feels. How good is your pull-up? How good is your plank and stuff like that? When you get good at something, it feels better. My pull-ups, my squats, and my dips and stuff have gotten a hell of a lot better. How? Because they feel a lot better. It's not nearly as hard on my joints. I feel it straight into the muscle. Whereas before it was like, sometimes I feel it in the chest, sometimes not. Now I put my hands on the ground, bang, my chest lights up like a Christmas tree. So yeah, how things feel are incredibly important. Oh, sorry, chocolate balloon. I think I jumped in mid-conversation here. Is it dangerous? I ate 2 pints of Ben & Jerry's. Just 2. Call me back when you've had 3. That's my record right there. 3 pints right there. Not in one sitting. It was like over the course of the better part of an afternoon. Here's the rest of the conversation here. Let's see. 300 pounds, ADHD, and so on, being logical without emotion, anger is something I have to stick to as much as possible because people get scared. It's dangerous. Well, I wouldn't turn your back on it too much. As I'm researching one of my next books, I've actually outlined the next 5. Excuse me, the next 4 books. One of the things I'm realizing is that fundamentally we human beings are emotional creatures. It's our emotional state that makes us more who we are than what we actually think and know. So understanding our emotional state, how we react to things, not fighting it, but being able to work with it is one of the most empowering things we can do. Because on one hand, things like anger and fear and frustration can ruin our lives. But at the same time, if we know how to use those feelings in a productive and a constructive way and understand them, they can go from something that is going to ruin our lives to something that can actually enhance your life far beyond where you are now, and use it as a vehicle to drive progress. Same emotional thing. It's kind of like gasoline. You can use gasoline to power a race car. You can also use it to burn down a house. it's all in its application and understanding, because it's a lot of energy. A lot of energy can be constructive or destructive depending on your understanding of how to use it. So don't be too negative and harsh about such things, because you don't want to turn your back on such potential. Rocky coming on. Are dips better for chest development than the bench press? Thanks for Macedonia. Wow, Macedonia. Have to look that one up on a map. But I would say yes, personally, just my preference, my experience. I remember there was an article on T Nation years ago about, and they were talking about best exercises for different muscle groups and stuff. And they were saying the best chest exercise is not the bench press. It's in fact dips. And that was just totally foreign to me because I was a bench press-aholic back then. But no, I really do believe that the dips can be extremely effective. And the biggest thing, though, is remember, it's not the exercise. It's your proficiency. If you're really good at bench press and you can engage your chest well in the bench press will be awesome for chest development. It's not about the exercise. The exercise doesn't build your muscles. You're just using the exercise as a vehicle to require tension in the muscle. So we want to be aware of that. It's you that makes the muscle work, not the exercise. And a lot of times, if you do an exercise like, oh, I feel this in my chest doing bench press, but not dips, that's an opportunity to be like, all right, so what are you doing differently? Because ultimately, you're not doing anything different. You both dips and push-ups and bench press are elbow or humeral adduction with shoulder flexion. So if the movement pattern is the same, then theoretically, the stimulus should be the same, regardless of what the exercise is, because you're using the same muscles to do the same basic movement pattern. Shouldn't really matter what the exercise is. But I like dips particularly because I find that they're just easier to get a big range of motion and for a lot of people to use with a lot of intensity. Bench press, a lot of internal rotation, typically elbows winging out, just tends to be a little bit more difficult to make that happen. But that's just my opinion and experience. That's all. Greg is asking, hey, Matt, how do you work on conditioning in the winter in Colorado? Do you less with the bikes? Oh. So back in the day, I was a serious cardio junkie with, because in the winter in Vermont, the winter just shuts down everything outside. Everything's caked in salt and ice and snow. It's very hard to be active outside in the winter in Vermont. So the gyms in the wintertime in Vermont would just get packed. Like that's basically what gyms were. I grew up for the longest time thinking nobody goes to the gym year round. Gyms were what you did in the winter. And as soon as the weather turned nice, everybody leaves the gym. And gyms are like morgues in Vermont during the winter because everybody's like, yay, we can finally go outside. Gyms were like, a secondary cheap rate form of physical activity before the snow melted. And then you did the real exercise, which was going outside. That was real exercise when I was younger. But now, of course, fundamentally, it doesn't matter where you're running on a track indoors or outside. You're running is running. But now here in Colorado, here in Denver, winters are much more temperate. So I can ride much longer throughout the year. It's much more easier to ride during the winter. And plus, I discovered backcountry skiing back in the day. Excuse me. So nothing works you like hiking up a mountain with a big heavy pack and skis on your feet. You're going up a 14er here in Colorado. That's like 4 or 5 hours of cardio. And then when you're skiing down, that's workout too. So even when I ski the resort, I'm doing a lot of very aggressive technical skiing, a lot of bumps, a lot of trees. Basically I do jump squats down a mountain for several hours every week. So that's some pretty good conditioning there as well. So that's pretty much what I do. Hey, 4 layers of strength coming on. Very good to see you, my friend. Have you attempted any of off physical challenges? Was the case with the boulder carrier at Mount Mansfield mid 2020. My God, I can't believe you remember that. Yeah, I had this crazy idea right before I moved to Colorado. I wanted to carry a 60-pound rock up Mount Mansfield, the tallest mountain in Vermont. That was tough. Is it safe to assume that you still value such kinds of activities? Yeah. So he's talking about like just crazy, wild physical activities that you're, kind of stuff that's based off of a dare or a drunken idea that you get. It's like, wouldn't it be crazy if we did X, Y, and Z? It's like, that would be crazy. And then the next day you're like, so we're doing the thing, right? You're like, oh, we are? Oh, okay. So a couple things I've done fairly recently. The past month, I was in Oregon with a buddy of mine, and we rode from his house to a place called Sisters, which we ran into some friends when we were riding. They were like, where are you going? We're going up to Sisters. And they're like, up there? That's crazy. That turned out to be like a 6.5-hour ride. It was a pretty good challenge. A lot of them are like that. They're not like crazy stuff, but they're just like, this will be a cool challenge to do. Earlier this year, I rode a 50-miler from Copper Mountain to Vail, and that was 12 hours on the bike. That was not fun. That was no small feat whatsoever, but that was a crazy challenge as well. So yeah, things like this, they're just good to do once in a while. They're good gut checks, and they're fun. They're fun to just be like, hey, wouldn't it be crazy if we did this? Is that something that's going to be about your workout? No, like I did that ride once. Like that we get results from what we repeat. But things like that are just fun little challenges to do. And of course, be safe about it. Don't be stupid about, doing things. When I was doing the boulder hike up Mansfield, I took a lot of safety precautions. I made sure I had a support team with me and stuff, because especially out here in Colorado, in those Rocky Mountains, things can get deadly very quickly if you're kind of stupid about it. So be safe, have precautions. But yeah, I think it's good for people to do that from time to time, because it's just a good thing to do to really stretch your concept of what really is possible. Excuse me. Let's see, what else can we address here? So continuing on with the conversation, though, about what I used to challenge, one of the biggest challenges I also changed was my my approach to diet. Real quick here, though, chocolate balloon. It's funny you're recommending the movie Dune. I'm gonna go see that tonight. I was just on the phone with a client. He's like, you gotta go see Dune. I never read the book. I never saw the original movie, but everybody's talking about it. I guess I gotta go see it. But anyway, diet. So back in the day, my whole approach to diet was don't eat bad foods, like whatever was deemed as bad at the time, right? So I got into the fitness thing really hard and heavy back when the whole low fat thing was really in full swing. So basically my whole diet was based on how much fat does something have. The less fat it has, the healthier it is. The more fat it has, the worse off it is. And that was what I based my entire diet off of, right? That was it. But now my diet is not at all based on any restriction whatsoever. It's based on how healthy can I be with my diet, aka how productive can my eating be? Food is like exercise. It's like any other tool. It's meant to be productive for us. It's to bring us benefit. It's not going to be beneficial just because it doesn't have certain ingredients or nutrients to it. Yes, of course, if you're allergic to nuts or you're a celiac and you can't eat gluten, by all means, get that stuff out of your diet. But your diet's not going to be healthy just because you don't eat gluten, just because you don't eat sugar, just because you don't eat meat or whatever. Make those choices if you like or if you have to, but that's a low standard for your diet, because a good healthy diet requires a hell of a lot more than just not eating Oreo cookies or steak or whatever. Instead, it's about how your food choices are satisfying your appetites, are supporting your health and well-being. And I go into more of that in my book, Fitness Independence, and the 4 primal appetites and stuff, and my 3P strategy, plant, protein, and portion at each meal and stuff like that. But that's what we want to base our diet more off of, is how effective is our diet? How productive, how satisfying is our diet? That's what we want to base it off of, not just, oh, I didn't eat any of X today, therefore my diet was good. But looking back, like I would have plenty of times when my fat intake was low, but I would say my diet wasn't healthy at all. It was not healthy. It was not satisfying. It was not nearly as good as it could have been because I had a low standard. Trying to base your diet off of just a restriction is maybe a step in the right direction, but it's just one step. It's not nearly enough to take you all the way for the journey. Lucas B asking, is it dangerous to continue doing short bridges after my hamstrings cramped up? Because they cramp up after just one rep. This is a very good question here, because short bridges, like table bridges where your knees are bent and stuff, I like that exercise because it works your hamstrings oftentimes a lot harder than anyone's ever done. So when your muscles are cramping like that, there, Lucas, that's literally what's going on. And people are like, why are they cramping? You've never worked your hamstrings that hard. People ask all the time, or they criticize bridges. They're like, you can't build hamstrings. That cramp shows that you're using your hamstrings more than you used them before, because that's what's going on. Is the demand on your hamstrings to work that hard is new to your nervous system, and your brain is literally just kind of freaking out a little bit and making them contract with so much force they're cramping up. So to answer your question, no, it's not bad to continue doing them. I recommend going with just a little bit less force, maybe pulling into the heels a little bit less. Don't come up quite as high in the bridge with your hips. So the force production and the tension production in your hamstrings increases exponentially as you lift up your hips. So if you just don't go quite as high, you won't have quite that level where your nervous system is freaking out and you cause that cramp. Practice it that way for several weeks, and your brain will get used to that level of intensity. And before too long, you'll be able to go full out and it won't cramp up anymore. So just back off a little bit. But no, it's perfectly fine to keep going as well as you are, comfortable with it. If you're just cramp, okay, maybe take a day off from that sort of thing. Red chiming in on the diet thing, thinking diet as a long-term lifestyle has been easier than thinking it's a fleeting food schedule. Absolutely. Remember, we want to play the long game here. And maybe this was just my naivety of youth, because when I was younger, when you're 17 years old, 20 years old, you don't think too much about long game. You think, what can I do to make gains in the next week or the next 6 months or so? But now I'm 43 and you've got more time behind you. So you get more of an appreciation of long-term effects. And yeah, sure, I want results. But at the same time, I realize I've got to keep this stuff up for a long time. So when we're looking at short-term results, it's fine to be like, I'm fine with short-term results as long as I'm willing to lose short-term results because I can't maintain them. But my attitude long has been, and from day one has long been, well, I need to be able to use things that I can maintain relatively easily. The best habits are the ones that take the least amount of effort to stick to, not the ones that necessarily produce the best results. So especially with diet, because diet's one of those things, you've got to make good choices multiple times every single day. It's not like something you do once a year, and it's like, well, it sucks for once a year, but it's not that often. Diet is one of those things that we have to choose and make good decisions off of many times every single day. So if we don't have a very sustainable approach and we're just trying to go all out and basing, again, things off of effort, then that sustainability is compromised. And that can just derail things both in the short and long term. Mooney coming on. So what do you believe is more efficient? Separating workouts by muscle group, separating by fitness modality, power, hypertrophy, endurance? You can do it either way. I don't really think it matters, to be perfectly honest. You just want to be aware of what sort of things are maybe compromising others. Like if I do some really heavy dips, first thing in my workout, I'm like, okay, explosive push-ups, let's go. And you barely pick yourself up off the floor because you're tired. And then it's like, okay, well, no, explosive push-ups first, then the weighted dip second kind of thing. So just be aware of the interference effect where you train one thing and then because of the order or the structure, it's interfering with the ability to train something else. It's different for everybody, different for what you're training and stuff. So just be aware of that. But, I'm basically, I look at it kind of like, does it matter if you make $1 a day or $7 a week? What if you make $2 on Tuesday and then $3 on Wednesday, but then you don't make anything on Thursday? Basically think about like, what's the work you're doing? And at the end of each week or each month, the amount of work is the same. Really, it doesn't matter how you jumble it around in the middle of the week. You're just getting the same amount of work done throughout this roughly the same amount of time. And that at the end of the day is probably all that really matters. So then you just arrange things based off of just preference. It's like, I don't like doing my workouts on Wednesday. I'd rather do them Tuesday. Great, do them Tuesday. I don't want to do legs, first thing because I get tired. And then, when I try to do jumping, it doesn't work as well. Great, do it the other way, kind of thing. A lot of this stuff just comes from experience. I don't like doing it that way. I'd rather do it this way. Good. A lot of our programming options in our workouts, and again, this is back in the day, I was like, what does the science say? What does the experts say and stuff? A lot of what we need to be doing should just be like, I don't like how this feels doing it this way. I think I'd rather do it this other way just because I like that better. Great. That literally is what you should be basing your programming decisions off of. Just that. A lot of what works best for us is boiling down to just that personal preference. Just, this seems to work better for me. I just like doing it this way instead, kind of thing. And again, coming back down to emotional content, the emotional drive I was talking about. We were talking about anger. I was discussing this with a client this morning, where I was like, so much of what makes something work is just, are you coming at it with a positive emotional orientation? I love doing this. This feels great. This is so satisfying. I love doing it. Just because of that, you're probably going to get better results. I hate doing this workout. This sort of thing sucks. I hate how this feels. Probably not going to be the best thing for you, right? We fuel ourselves from our emotional state. So if you do something a certain way and you just feel better about it emotionally, chances are that's the direction you should be kind of going. I know it's kind of like, follow your heart kind of cliche and stuff, but there's a reason why that sort of advice works a lot of times. Lots of times there. Mariano, hey, good to see you, Mariano. Good looking picture there. I think that's a new avatar. But anyway, hey, Matt, why do most coaches always label full body training for, quote, novices? Such a good question. I tip my cup to you for such a good question. So here's the thing. Again, it's like, just get the work done. I don't care. Split it up, do it full body, whatever. But when it comes to getting the ball rolling as a novice, as a beginner and stuff, typically people have better momentum with full body stuff, because when we break it up, the workouts can be inconsistent. They can be here and there. You've got one workout that's awesome, one workout that they're really out of sorts. They're still getting their diet in check. There's a lot of potential inconsistency with their approach to health and fitness as a novice. So if you have that inconsistency, that means that if you do legs one day and chest one day and back one day, you could have one body part that got a great workout and the other two were, so-so. So by hitting everything all together at once, then chances are much greater that you're going to get everything pretty good at some point, right? Plus, as a novice, it takes nothing to stimulate a reaction. As you get more advanced, you're like, I really want to take this thing to the trees. Then yeah, it may make sense to put a lot of things into one area of focus. I'm going to work my legs for an hour kind of thing. But when you're a beginner, you do a couple hard sets of squats, that's enough to create a stimulus, right? So that's usually a lot of reasons why people recommend full body training for novices. And don't let that, fool you into thinking that full body training is for beginners. Once you're no longer a beginner, full body training doesn't work. Of course it works. It works fantastic. It always works. It's just when we get more advanced, sometimes we want to focus in certain areas or develop training emphasis. And that requires time and resources and stuff that just doesn't make full body training all that practical. Let's see. What's this? Kickstarter 89. Kickboxer. My bad. Excuse me, Kickstarters. Blah. What would be the best way to train the meniscus tear or an injured shoulder? That's one for your physical therapist to answer. Largely because there's different kinds of tears. There's different degrees of tears. There's, forces on the knee, good in some ways and stuff. Generally, a lot of it involves stuff that isn't weight bearing though. A good buddy of mine had a really bad ACL tear way back in the day. And what ended up happening was he was just on the bike a lot, not weight bearing, but he's moving through the joint. Same thing with the shoulders, just light kind of stuff. But yeah, let pain be your guide and refer to your doctor for what is good and what is not so good for that sort of thing. And generally the stuff that is very restrictive in how you can move, so like barbell bench press, probably not the best. Push-ups on rings, because you've got all this freedom and flexibility, probably a better way to go. Look to freedom. Freedom of movement and autonomy, good way to go. All right, let's see what we can do for the last couple of questions here. How do you get the feeling of falling over when trying harder exercise, free handstands and stuff? I'm not very good at that. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't really work on that sort of thing. It's just not really much of my wheelhouse. But a lot of that just has to do with very strong total connection of tension throughout the entire chain. So like with handstands, tensing your hands, your forearms, your arms, your shoulders, your back, your glutes, your hamstrings. Stability is having a lot of tension, or at least sufficient tension in the muscles, but also getting everything to link up. So when we lack stability, we either A, lack strength, or we lack the coordination to link the tension in the muscles together. So it's all working as one cohesive unit. It's usually one of the two. It's lack of strength or lack of coordination. See which one applies to you and then focus on that. Last one for the day here before I tech her on out. Do specific lower body isometric exercise increase speed? Absolutely, particularly overcoming isometrics, which sounds weird that it would work like that because you're not moving. How in the world can it be explosive? But remember, you're training your nervous system to engage as much of your muscle fibers as possible very quickly. Doesn't matter if you're moving or not. You're just engaging a lot of fibers in a short period of time, like 2 seconds. So that carries over to speed very, very well because you're training your nervous system to produce a lot of force in a short period of time, which ultimately is what explosiveness is all about. Oh, what the hell, one more. Here, Kickboxer 69. See, I got it right this time. Hey, Matt, what's your opinion of yoga in general? I think it's great. It's wonderful. But for me, I just can't do it. Every time I try yoga, it does not feel good. It does not feel right for me. I always feel like I was on a continental flight and with poor sleep. Whenever it does not relax me. It does not make me feel loose. It makes me feel like crap. But that's me personally. So what? You know, this is the biggest mistake that we coaches make. And again, from my past, I used to make when I started as a coach, I used to make the mistake of believing that my training study with a sample size of 1, me, was reliable. Like, well, this is how I feel, and this is how it works for me, and this is what works for me, and this is what I don't like, and this is what I do like, and all these other sorts of things. Therefore, I should base my advice to other people based on my personal experience. That's what a lot of us do when we're green in the profession. But as you get older, you realize that lots of different things work differently for different people. So yoga works great for a lot of people. So you should try it because you never know if it's going to be that life-changing thing for you. I know for me, it's just not my bag. But does that matter to you? Not at all. You know, it has no bearing whatsoever on your ability to get the benefits of yoga. So my professional opinion is it's awesome. My personal opinion for me is it's terrible. So, but the opinion you should go with is a professional one, and more importantly, your own. Try it, try different styles, see what you experience, then form your own opinion, and that's what you should be basing things off of as well. All right, folks. Well, I am going to retire my voice for the rest of the night, see if I can go pick up a ticket to go see Dune. My sincere thanks for all of you for coming on. Again, this show is brought to you by the folks over at Dynamic, maker of doorway pull-up bars that are the best in the industry. Check the link down below to check out their wares. They've got the Dynamic Elevia pull-up handles with their power hold. They got some fun new accessories coming out very soon, which are very exciting. And use the the promo code GRINDSTYLE for 10% off your order if you decide to make a purchase. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming on, asking your great questions. I really like this more flexible format of the podcast. We'll do the same thing next week. Don't forget to check the Red Delta Project Instagram channel for updates for new show times and future topics of the podcast as well. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll see you next week. Till then, be fit and live free.